So, hypothetical scenario. Imagine you could go back and do it all over again, and you could only bring one lesson from your experience in building BitMEX. What lesson would it be?
Hire better people. So
Mm,
spend more time understanding what role you want them to do, interviewing them on what they've done to actually give you confidence that they could do the job you want them to do, and sort of don't be in a rush. You don't have to have somebody today who's bad. Wait and get the person you want.
Welcome to Entrepreneurism. I'm your host, Scott Pollock, a seasoned business leader, entrepreneur, and CEO coach with a passion for helping others achieve success in their entrepreneurial journeys. On this show, we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, uncovering why so many struggle and revealing what the most successful do differently. True entrepreneurs have unique superpowers, including the ability to spot hidden business opportunities and convert them into thriving ventures. For most mere mortals, this ability is absolutely unfathomable. But these same strengths can become sources of struggle, whether it's pursuing multiple opportunities without losing focus, scaling without eroding culture, or balancing short-term demands with long-term vision. The entrepreneur's journey is full of tensions. Here we explore critical factors that drive entrepreneurial success: how to stay focused, manage resources, build strong teams, and develop the resilience to navigate the ups and downs of the journey. Bold ideas, candid conversations, and insights that will help you unlock your full potential. Ready to learn and grow, expand your toolkit, and discover actionable strategies to help you navigate your own entrepreneurism? Let's dive in. On today's show, I'm super excited to have my client and friend, Arthur Hayes, co-founder and CEO of the world's first crypto unicorn. Welcome, Arthur.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
A little more introduction. Arthur's a Wharton grad who cut his trading teeth at Deutsche Bank and Citibank before co-founding BitMEX with Ben Dello and Sam Reed. In early 2017, when Arthur hired me first as a China market advisor and later as a coach to him and BitMEX's leadership team, the company was just hitting its inflection point. BitMEX grew about 35,000% over the next 3 years, going from about, 13 people to 300 people or so, leading the way in
Yeah.
the crypto derivative space that it pioneered. Now, the next few years saw political turbulence as regulators went after crypto platforms with both civil and criminal charges, which brought plenty of personal challenges. Very happy that the saga took a positive turn this year when President Trump pardoned Arthur and his co-founders. Today, Arthur continues on the board of 100X Group, which is the parent of BitMEX, and is the chief investment officer of Maelstrom, his family office that invests across the crypto ecosystem. Okay, enough of me talking. Arthur, perhaps you can talk briefly about how you started your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So I got into crypto in early 2013. I was working at Citibank at the time. I had read an article on Zero Hedge about Bitcoin going from like $50 to like $250. And I thought, oh, this sounds pretty interesting. And then when I lost my job in May of 2013, I thought, I want to do something different with my life, something more, an entrepreneurial on my own journey. And so I read the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto about Bitcoin. It really resonated with my ethos. I was a gold bug at the time, and I started trading it pretty actively in Hong Kong, where I was living. I did a bunch of arbitrage, traded on some very early derivatives platforms back in the day, and then decided that trading is hard, as I'm sure many of your listeners understand. And I wanted to own like a real revenue stream, and the only thing I knew how to do was trade derivatives. So I thought, why don't I build the platform that I wish I had right now to trade and make more money? And so then I went out, found my two co-founders, Ben Delo and Sam Reed, who you mentioned, and the three of us decided to start BitMEX in early 2014, and sort of that's how the journey started.
Amazing. Amazing. So I mean, clearly one of your superpowers then, I think, was understanding what's in the mind of the derivatives trader, and being one yourself. You were always very in tune with what your customer wanted. What else would you say? I mean, as you launched into that entrepreneurial pursuit, what else did you personally bring to the table, do you think, that helped you to be successful, or how did you leverage what you brought to the table?
I think I was very confident that somebody would succeed in derivatives and crypto.
Mhm.
I didn't know if it would be me or not. The question of how long you can last, how long is your cash flow, your situation, all those sorts of things. But I knew that somebody would make it big in this ecosystem, and I hope that we could stick around long enough to realize that dream. And obviously, when we started in 2014, this is back right after Mt. Gox, the largest crypto trading platform at the time. 90% of crypto trading volume was happening on this exchange. They went under. Lots of people lost their money. Confidence was shattered in the exchange business. There was no venture capital funding for crypto exchange businesses or even Bitcoin's focused trading businesses in any shape or form. It was all about like enterprise, whatever gobbledygook that we're trying to fund at the time. So there was no money out there. You really had to believe that, building this trading product was going to be successful with your clients, and you had to charge a real fee, right? This wasn't a raise a bunch of money and sort of spend it on customer acquisition. Like, you actually had to charge people something, and they had to want to use your product and pay for it immediately. Otherwise, you weren't going to be in business very long.
Okay. So Arthur, you mentioned there a couple things. One is the belief that you had, and I think that's so common across entrepreneurs. I mean, it's I think part of the entrepreneurial DNA is that you've got a belief in something, even if other people perhaps are telling you no, that'll never work, right? And you had conviction to stick with that. And then you also, you were mentioning that you were charging from day one, that you believed that it was important, that you were putting a price tag on that, and essentially establishing product market fit is the way that I think about it, right? I mean, if someone's willing to pay for it, then it means that the market needs what you're selling, right? If you're giving it away, then you're not quite sure, right? You might have people that are using it, but that's maybe just because they're just curious. So talk a little bit about that latter part, that finding product market fit in those early days.
I mean, luckily for leverage trading platforms, I can't think of a single platform out there that doesn't charge a fee or has ever not charged a fee.
Right.
Even in China, right, where the bleed them dry with no fee business model is runs rampant. Even the Chinese platforms that we competed with trading the similar types of products, they charged fees for derivatives. So there really wasn't thankfully there wasn't a choice. It was, okay, we know the client is paying for this. They pay for it in traditional finance. They're going to pay for it in crypto. The small exchanges that existed before we started, they pay for it there. Um, some of our Chinese competitors, they're even charging. So we all were charging money. You know,
Hmm.
the fee almost didn't really matter. It was like how good was your product and liquidity and all that sort of thing. So I think that made it quite easy, because when you trade something, the expectation is that you're going to pay a fee, which is completely different than a lot of other, you know, internet or information technology businesses that we've seen over the
Okay.
past 20 or 30 years.
Okay. And in those early days, I believe you made at least one significant pivot in terms of who your customer was, right? And talk a little bit about that, and about figuring out the right customer.
So, no, obviously, this isn't a derivatives podcast, so I don't want to get too into the weeds, but essentially, you can sort of have two different models on how you give leverage and margin people. One is where you say, okay, if something happens and you, the person who holds this position, you go bankrupt, we, the exchange, will make sure that the person who made money off of your bankruptcy gets paid out, even if you, the trader who went bankrupt, doesn't have any more money.
Hmm.
And so that basically puts a big financial strain on the exchange, because you have to have a lot of capital to make that consideration. That was not the case in crypto. And so when we launched, we thought, okay, this is a differentiator. We think people want that kind of model, so we're gonna make that guarantee. Now, the problem with that is you can't offer as much leverage. You have to be much more conservative in the product specifications that you offer. On the other side, our competitors said, okay, we're not going to make this guarantee that everyone in profit always gets paid out, but we're going to give you high leverage. And so that model was around, and clients really liked that model. They wanted the high leverage. They're willing to sacrifice the guarantee of profit, They weren't willing to trade on our low leverage profit guaranteed model, and we struggled gaining clients for the first, call it, I don't know, 10 or so months after we launched. And so finally we said, okay, well, obviously this isn't working. We can see this product market fit, people paying money on our competitors. They offer a higher leverage product without this guarantee. Let's scrap the guarantee. We think we have better tech than they do. We're going to add more leverage than they have
Mm.
and really lean into the sort of more speculative mindset of traders. And so that's we launched the sort of the 100x leverage um, feature, which was about 5 times as large as our major competitors who were at 20 times leverage. And sort of that kind of cemented our name in the game as the highest leverage offering for crypto derivatives back in the fall of 2015. And almost instantaneously, we went to profitability on a cash flow basis as clients said, okay, I like this product offering. This makes more sense.
Right, right. And the type of client, I think, also sort of shifted a bit, right?
Yeah. So these are, I mean, the people who are spending money said, okay, I want high leverage. Do you guys have our high leverage? Okay, we're willing to start to try out your service.
Right. So talk about, in those, well, actually, not just the early days, but all throughout, maybe a little bit more about your own personal struggles as an entrepreneur. And you were a founder CEO for the first time, right? Talk a little bit about what it was that was the greatest source of struggle for you to sort of take on that role, and especially in the context of a business that was hyperscaling, was really growing faster than most people can imagine.
Yeah. So I love trading. I love financial derivatives. Um, love economics, that kind of thing. And when I was working at Citibank and Deutsche Bank, I actually loved the actual part of my job, which was trading. I just
Mhm.
hated everything else that came along with working at a bank, the politics and, all the bullshit stuff you have to do that doesn't make any money and all that kind of stuff. So, but the actual trading part, I love. And so, coming over to BitMEX, like I love designing financial products. I love speaking to clients, figuring out ways that we can create cool new markets for them to trade, speaking to clients about that kind of stuff. What I absolutely hate is human resources and that side of things. So not big of an issue when you have a company that's like 10 people. Everybody's cool, chill, and friendly, and all that sort of stuff. And you have problems, you deal with them because obviously nothing is perfect. But when you have a company of a few hundred people, and most of your day is spent dealing with personal issues between your senior executives, I absolutely hated it. And so I didn't get to do any of the things I like to do. All I did all day was put out personnel fires with people trying to, get them to do what we asked them to do. And so I say that was probably my biggest um, thing that I didn't like about, running a, you know, few hundred person company, which is, it's big in the SME context, but obviously I'm sure some of the people listening to this show have like thousands of persons company. And I can only imagine what comes along with that, given that, at 250, 300 people, this is not something I enjoyed dealing with.
Right, right. And I mean, look, talk to it. I mean, the soft stuff is the hard stuff in most cases, I would say, in the entrepreneurial journey, meaning that it is the people equation that is the most challenging. I mean, as you said, if you're just trying to get the numbers to work in a derivatives kind of context, that's for you pretty straightforward, right? But people, unfortunately, are not quite so logical. And talk a little bit about again how you. I mean, you did make a pretty good run of it as this company was scaling, leading the company, and ultimately you were able to. I think in the dream of many entrepreneurs to step back to the board and hire professional managers to come in and to run that company. But what I'm more interested in is from your perspective, you didn't love the people side of the equation, but you did a pretty good job of it, and you held this thing together. That's no small feat. Keeping the wheels on the bus as a company is accelerating that quickly is certainly no small feat at all. So talk a little bit about how
I mean,
you
I think the biggest thing
manage that.
we had, the biggest thing we had going for us was we made money, and we made a lot of money. So we're profitable. So we don't. I didn't have the fundraising issue that a lot of people have to contend with, which is, okay, well, I hired all these people, they're very expensive, and every month I just watch my bank balance go down. Whereas we had the opposite problems. Okay, well, we have all this money. We're in an industry where, at least at the time, it was very hard to hire a lot of talent because it was considered very risky, right? We
Mhm.
needed financial markets professionals who had a certain type of background. You make a good salary working for a large bank or whatnot. Are you really going to give that up and come over to this crypto startup when, regulatory uncertainty? Are you guys going to go to jail? All this sort of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so obviously we end up overpaying for talent and, not having the pick of the litter in terms of the types of people that we want to hire. And, to be honest, we hired a lot of bad people who were quite toxic for the business. But again, it was very hard to hire talent. It's not like it is today in terms of the willingness of people to work for crypto. But again, we were making a lot of money, which made things, different set of problems,
Yep.
a lot easier than I would say if spending $100,000 a month just watching yourself go out the door and until you find that product that actually starts making revenue. So it made things a bit easier for us to deal with the scaling. Sometimes we just spent our way out of certain problems, but then obviously we attracted some of the wrong sort of people to the company, which ended up not working out so well, a few years down the line.
Yeah. 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 I certainly remember some of those and had to make the hard decisions or sometimes the easy decisions of showing them the door. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the regulatory wins or headwinds, and certainly BitMEX in those early days of crypto was a disruptor in a regulated space. Talk a little bit about what that was, how that posed itself as a challenge, but also how you and the team were able to navigate that and to some extent, to create solutions and to maybe in other ways, because I remember the story a bit, how you were able to navigate around challenges.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't say there was a regulated space. It was an unregulated space where people thought that it should be regulated. Now,
Well,
whether or not you believe
okay.
in their
Yeah,
their theory,
it's
that, that, that that's the
it's a
question.
technicality, right? Because
Yeah.
indeed, yes, there was a question mark as to whether it should or was regulated under the current regimes. Yeah.
Right. And so that's the struggle that every sort of crypto company, struggled with and continues to struggle with to this day. And, the only advice is to have a high risk tolerance. Like, this is the game you're playing. Understand what it is. Obviously, don't go out try stealing people's money and stuff like that. But I think anyone who's getting into this game and thinking it's, yeah, I'm just gonna go and disrupt the big banks who've been around for a few hundred years, making tens of $1 billions a year in profit. You kind of have to understand like the macro narrative of what's going on. I don't know if there's any sort of panacea solution to that. It's just like it is what it is. You kind of just deal with it, and try to find the political fault lines where they are, depending on where you happen to be. Obviously, sometimes you're going to get it wrong. We got some of them wrong. Sometimes you're going to get it right, and so I think that's just part of the game, unfortunately, for this type of business. But obviously, if you're able to come out the other side and offer a product that people want, there's obviously immense financial success for those type of companies. And BitMEX and others, we've seen a lot of crypto companies deal with it, come out the other
Mhm.
side, and thrive.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And so mindset, um, understanding that there's going to be headwinds and there's going to be potholes, but if you keep your focus on what the end goal is, then there's still the potential to find success as you guys did. So makes sense. I want to shift gears a little bit, do a little bit of quick fire entrepreneur hacks, as I like to call them. What one book should every entrepreneur read? What's the one book?
I don't know the full name of it. What's the Who book about HR
Oh,
hiring
yeah.
practices?
Okay. Okay. Jeff Smart's book, Who? Yeah. 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 Hiring A players. Good one. Good one. What's one thing you do every morning to set yourself up for success?
Exercise.
Yeah. What's a tool or app you can't live without?
Ooh, tool or app. Probably because I check Bitcoin prices so much. Trading View.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Makes sense. Um, what daily habit keeps you grounded?
I probably against the exercise. I spend even during BitMEX days, I spent a lot of time exercising, going to yoga, working out, whatever. I think it obviously you need a way to like decompress and not just like let your health go to shit while you're doing this because it's can be mentally grinding, grueling.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, whether it's exercise or meditation or whatever, yeah, keep
Yeah.
your oxygen mask first. I always point to that, and it's CEOs for sure need that. And what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Focus on the supply. So in our business, it's liquidity, right? So we have to have the most liquid platform. Everybody wants to trade on a liquid platform. That's not a question. And so, we did that by starting our own market making operation, making, putting them as a loss leader to just provide liquidity to make sure clients had liquidity. And obviously we made it back in spades on the fees. But again, always for at least for a two-sided marketplace, it's all about the supply of whatever it is that you're trading.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Good one. So, hypothetical scenario. Imagine you could go back and do it all over again, and you could only bring one lesson from your experience in building BitMEX. What lesson would it be?
Hire better people. So
Mm,
spend more time understanding what role you want them to do, interviewing them on what they've done to actually give you confidence that they could do the job you want them to do, and sort of don't be in a rush. You don't have to have somebody today who's bad. Wait and get the person you want.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Better to have an empty seat than to have the wrong person sitting in it.
Yeah.
Yep, I like that one a lot. I guess one closing question. Since you were the kind of first time entrepreneur who succeeded, and by the way, that puts you in a pretty small class. Most successful entrepreneurs, I think, can look back on multiple failures first. But what's one piece of advice that you'd give to entrepreneurs maybe just starting their journey?
I mean, I'm pretty critical of. I think you want to be starting a business that someone's willing to pay for. I think I see a lot of people who end up working for their VC firm, and so they're busting their ass. And they're not really making any money. They could have made more money if they worked at a regular 9 to 5 than literally just like selling your whole company to the VC firm who wants you to pursue a strategy of spending their money to achieve growth. They don't care how much profit you make, but that doesn't actually make you any money as the person doing all the work.
Yeah, that is no fun. Or being a slave to your own business. That's no fun either, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, amazing. Really appreciate you joining the show today, Arthur. Thank you.
Thanks for
Uh,
having me.
Absolutely. Some good stuff in there. To my listeners, we've got many more amazing guests lined up. So please subscribe, leave feedback, and share this episode in your feeds if you liked it. Thanks for listening. Remember, entrepreneurship isn't just about spotting opportunities. It's about taking disciplined action to bring them to life. Hope you'll join again next time as we continue to unpack the complexities of entrepreneurism.